It was discovered, it was delineated in 1648 by another French scientist. It was delineated in the Old Testament centuries ago. All of the information about weather, all the information about this hydrological cycle, key issues of God's creation. Now, specific weather phenomena in Israel. This is fascinating. Israel is very much like California. We are roughly in the same place in terms of our relationship to the equator. The weather is very similar. The phenomena is the geography is different. We have very, very high mountains here. They don't have that in Israel particularly. But the weather is very much the same. In Israel, you have in James 5:7, Deuteronomy 11:14, Joel 2:23, discussions of the former and the latter rains. This is an important concept in Israel because it is what causes Israel to be able to exist. Israel is located. A man named Henry Bresser coined the phrase in the 1800s called the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent, a crescent running across the Middle East from basically Iran and Iraq, tipping up through the Tigris and Euphrates and kind of coming to an end in Israel. Israel is in the Fertile Crescent. It is unfortunately the least fertile part of the Fertile Crescent, mainly because of the issues of water, much like Southern California. Israel has two rainy seasons. They have the former rains, which basically run from late October to late December, early January. And these rains are important in an agrarian community because these rains are hard, pounding, thunderstormish kind of large drops of rain. And these are important for the farmers because from middle October back to about April, just like Southern California, it hasn't rained at all. There's essentially no rain falls in Israel from middle-late May till middle-late October. And so to break up this hard, sun-parched ground, God has arranged the weather in such a way that you get hard, pounding, driving, heavy rain, which pours lots of water on the ground and allows the ground to be broken up, to be able to be plowed, to be able to be to have breaks in it so you can loosen it up so you can then plant again. The latter rains are the rains that fall from then about the middle of January to about April, the middle of April. And these are light rain. They tend to last longer, but they don't rain as much. Not as much volume, but it tends to spread it out longer, which is just the kind of rain you need in order for the wheat and the barley and the other crops to grow. The rest of the time, I'm going to drop down to the bottom. What do you do? How do you grow anything in Israel from April to October? Without the bottom there, the dew to water the land. Israel is right on the Mediterranean. The prevailing winds blow off the Mediterranean, typically right up into Israel. And every night the dew falls on the rain. Proverbs 3:20. Again, Hosea 14:5, Zechariah 8:12 talks about the dew. In the Jewish calendar, in the Jewish in the liturgical prayers of Judaism, you have specific prayers at these times of the year, thanking God for the dew that He has sent, asking Him to make sure He does send it. It is a sign of God's blessing when He sends the dew. It's a sign of God's cursing when He doesn't. Because without the dew, the grapes don't grow. Without the dew, the pomegranates don't grow. The olives don't grow. The fruits of the vine, the fruits of the tree, all of these, none of these, grapes don't like rain. They like dew. They don't like pounding rain especially. They like dew, and these are the kinds of things that grow. I had a couple cool pictures of dew in the morning, dew on the spider web, dew on the flowers. This is the kind of thing that the economy of Israel, the agrarian economy of Israel, requires for it to be sustained. Rain and dew are part of, in Deuteronomy we see those two concepts are actually part of God's covenant with the people of Israel. If they are obedient, they will get the rain, they will get the dew. When they disobey, God withholds those and brings drought and then famine to the land. One of the other key weather phenomena in Israel is the east wind. It's called the Ruach Hadim, the Shirako. It's also called the wind of Yahweh. We read about that a little bit already. Look at Matthew 6:30 for an example. Matthew chapter 6, the Sermon on the Mount. And he's talking about, but if he's talking about, you don't be anxious. If you're being anxious, how can you add a single day to your life? Why are you anxious about clothing? Observe how the lilies of the field grow, in verse 28. They do not toil, they do not spin. Yet I say to you that even Solomon in all of his glory did not clothe himself like one of these. But if God so arrays the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, will He not do so much more for you, O men of little faith? What's going on there? These east winds, the wind of Yahweh, this wind that blows off of the Iranian plateau, as air moves and it lowers in elevation, for every 100 feet air moves downhill, it also gains 1 degree in temperature. It's called heating by compression. And it's the same thing happens here. We get our Santa Ana winds. The winds are blowing from the northeast. They're blowing off the Utah, Colorado plateaus, off through Nevada, down into here. This wind, why does it get so hot? Because every 100 feet, basically, that the wind drops in elevation, it gets 1 degree warmer as the wind compresses. And it also, as the wind is compressing, as the air is compressing, it's also losing humidity. And so you get very, very dry, very, very hot winds blowing through. As they blow into Israel, as they blow off of there, an entire field can be wiped out. An entire crop can be turned to brown stubble in a day. George Adam Smith, who's a famous geographer who wrote a really, really good book called The Historical Geography of the Holy Land. If you ever are interested in that subject and can find a copy of it, it's worth your while. He has probably 30 years worth of data. When General Allenby in World War I conquered Palestine from the Ottoman Turks, he said he used 2 books to plan his attacks and his invasions that made him a successful general in this campaign. The Bible and George Adam Smith's Historical Geography of the Holy Land were the 2 books he used. General Allenby is a remarkable man, an evangelical Christian who was Plymouth Brethren, which was common. It was not. There are a lot of Plymouth Brethren in England, but for him to rise to the rank of a general in the British Army, not being Anglican, was remarkable and speaks to his ability more than anything else. But he used those 2 books. He talks about that. Talks about the wind. He has some stats where in one day, at 6 a.m. in the morning, it was 58 degrees. The wind started blowing at 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, it was 80 degrees. By 11 o'clock, it was over 100 degrees, and the humidity had dropped from 70% to 3%. Blowing and he says, and Adam Smith, as he's writing in his journal, he says he's observing this field where they had their tents, and he says he's watching the field turn from green to brown right before his eyes. As a result, in Israel, they have the same kind of phenomena that we have here in Southern California, which is what? Brush fires. Remarkable brush fires that will just sweep across various parts of the land. Same reason, same problem we have here. Not only the wind blowing the fire, but the fact there's no humidity. There's no moisture. And so all of the vegetation we see on the hills is dry and brown and ready to burn.